Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. My guest today is an Alabama native who spent a great deal of his childhood traveling along the Gulf Coast, New Orleans, Louisiana to visit family, eat delicious food, and soak in the city's unique culture. Starting his culinary journey at a young age, creating the perfect pot of gumbo soon became his obsession, and he spent many hours with his great-grandmother, Nanny, to learn the proper gumbo technique and is still perfecting that craft today. In 2016, the Gumbo Bros opened up its first brick-and-mortar location in Brooklyn and began serving homemade gumbos, proper po' boys, and other Cajun classics. Recently, they've opened up a second location in Nashville, and he's been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Today Show, New York Magazine, Grubstreet, Eater, and now the Morning Spotlight Podcast. He is Adam Lathan. Adam, welcome to the show.
What's up, Mike?
What's up, man?
That's quite the intro.
It is quite the intro. I had a lot to kind of pull from. Obviously, we're going to try to get into it, all of that.
It's all bullshit.
I love it. So just for the listeners at home, Adam started this episode out with like, can I curse? Should I curse? I'm going to try not to curse. Literally like the first thing. Yeah. But no,
it didn't take long.
It did not take long. But no, but I'm really excited about this. We've connected through your PR firm, which is fantastic because I've connected with other great people through that PR firm like Carrie and a bunch of other people over the course of the lifespan of this show. And when she sent me like the list, I was like, yeah, I'll take everybody. And then I started doing my research on everybody. So then obviously I got to Gumbo Bros and I was like, holy shit, they're in Brooklyn. Like, how come I've never been there? I mean, so maybe that's either, I don't know if it's bad marketing on your part that you didn't get to a guy like me who clearly loves to eat. But getting to Brooklyn is not always the easiest thing, just to be straight up.
You got to go through Secaucus, man. We already talked about that.
Yeah, right, yeah. Secaucus is the way to go for sure. So can you explain to me? So I find this very interesting. So you're an Alabama native. You went to LSU. Yeah. So you obviously have like those Southern roots. So how do you guys wind up opening up the first Gumbo Bros in Brooklyn? Like, how does that happen?
It's as simple as, well, it's not simple at all. We really started the company in New York as a means of like, hey, if we wanted to get something that we really wanted from home, we'd have to make it ourselves. And I grew up in Mobile, Alabama, which is again a very Cajun Creole centric area. It's not Louisiana, but it's along the Gulf Coast, and I think people would be surprised that aren't from the region to find like this type of cooking. It's not just like central to New Orleans or Cajun country in Louisiana, but along the Gulf Coast, really, you're going to find it in Pensacola, Florida, Mobile, Biloxi, and all that, and sort of eating along I-10 in both directions, and even some parts of Texas. So I grew up eating this food. My business partner at the time, based in New York, was he's from Alexandria, Louisiana. So he's from middle of Cajun country. So for us, not really Cajun country, but anyway, so he's a Louisiana native. We actually were roommates at LSU and found ourselves both living in New York. He was in grad school. I moved to New York because I was going to figure it all out there. Kind of one of those classic, like, yeah, whatever, I'll go to New York, move to the most expensive place on the planet and try to start a company and try to figure it out.
As you do.
As you do. And slip on a banana peel, and next thing you know, you're selling gumbo on the street corner. But no, man, we started the company really as a simple thing in the sense of my partner Clay Bowler came home one day and was like, I really want this. I really want gumbo. I really want this. I would always cook, and it was as simple as, can we get that here in New York? And sort of the light bulb moment happened, and we went out and we had a couple of drinks and cocktail napkins, scribbling down ideas and names and this and that and what can we do. And at the time he was working at these different food festivals, and it seems like in this time in New York these food festivals and pop-ups were like really, really popular. And he was working at one of them on a food truck, and he was like, I think we can actually make some money. We think nobody does it. Why don't we just kind of spitball this idea? So it really started, it was very bootstrap to start. It was, we started the company out of our apartment, had to rent a commissary kitchen, and sort of built the business. And then from there, we kind of built the business from a true like pop-up markets and stuff like that. We got a little attention. People were happy. Press started reaching out. And then we were like, okay, maybe we should go into catering. And then we went into the catering biz, and had some pretty prominent catering gigs that sort of led to, again, like the momentum building with the company. And then eventually we were like, why don't we just take the full leap and see what we can do? And, kind of went around and we were like, nobody's really doing this in New York. And the thing that we would always say is like, in a place like New York City where there's too much of everything, the fact that you can't get something as simple as a really great po' boy and a cup of gumbo just blew our minds. So that's sort of where it all got started. And that's how we really got going in New York. So both of us had moved to New York for different reasons. And then just the opportunity sort of presented itself and we just ran with it.
Yeah. So you mentioned over the course of that answer that, like, obviously, this type of cooking, this style of food is kind of all along the Gulf Coast. And one thing that I do think that I find interesting is that a lot of times when you get like, if you go to Texas for barbecue, it's going to be very specific to that area. If you're going to go to South Carolina, I mean, I'm going to do another barbecue example. It's going to be very specific to that area. And you have like these regions and pockets of cultures of food. And then a lot of times when you go to do and get those in New York, New Jersey, sometimes it's almost like a bastardized version of what that true essence of that thing, not all the time, obviously, but sometimes it is. Was that something that you guys had to contend with maybe early on as you started this journey? Because maybe people's taste buds around here are not the same as they are down there because they didn't really grow up on that kind of stuff.
It's the hardest problem, or it's the biggest problem that we deal with. And it's not necessarily getting people to accept the fact that this can be as good, if not better, than a lot of their memories from, that time that they had in New Orleans, or that grandmother who would make, pour their heart and soul into a gumbo or a dish or whatever. Like, getting people to get over the stigma, because frankly, there's been so much bad Cajun food presented outside of it feels like the region that we discussed. Like, it's hard to get people to get over that. So oftentimes what we are dealing with are people walking into us expecting us to fail. Right. So there's zero room for error. And it's something we always tell people. And I mean, one of our things is always like, we can't make it taste like your grandmother's, but we're damn sure going to try. And this is how my grandmother made it. And my grandmother is better than your grandmother. So anyway, my great grandmother. So for us, like, I mean, what we always tell people is like, it's so regional, like you said. Like, certain parts of Louisiana, literally parishes apart from one another, have different traditions and methods of cooking gumbo in particular that makes it really, really difficult to mass produce. Not necessarily mass produce, because like we still make it. Everything's made by hand. We don't have a co-packer. I don't buy jarred roux. We make our own chicken stock. Like we put all the effort that you're going to find in the stovetop version, but we just have to make it at a much larger scale. So we have to present that to people. And I think it's something that we really worked on in the first year of the restaurant, because basically the first response we would get, especially from Louisiana people, they're the worst customers to start. And then once they realize, they're like, oh shit, these guys actually know what they're talking about. They're actually doing those things that we that it takes to make a proper gumbo. Then all of a sudden it's like, the shield goes down and they want to be your friend. And once they figure out that we are legit and that this is really a real gumbo, you can kind of move past that. And then they're the best customers in the world. But they always start off skeptical because, like we said, so many times I think you're going to find a lot of chain corporate stuff that has tried to do this has failed because people don't want a chain or corporate gumbo. You know what I mean? They don't want that. They
don't want big gumbo. They want big gumbo. They want the real deal.
They want the real deal. Yeah. So for us, that's why we just our secret is we don't shortcut anything, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about that because I was following on the Instagram page. Is it at Gumbo Bros? Can we plug that right now? At Gumbo Bros.
At the Gumbo Bros.
At the Gumbo Bros. Yeah.
I don't know. It depends on
like the Ohio State the Gumbo
Exactly.
Bros. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
The Gumbo Bros.
yeah, so I think it was an Instagram post that you guys had put up, and it was something where like you put up a map and you put up where you get your bread, where you get your shrimp, where you get when you do those crawfish boils, where you get the crawfish, where you get all these different things. And I thought that was so interesting because like a lot of times, I mean, you're in New York. There's no shortage of good bread in New York.
Yeah,
I mean, that's an obvious thing, but it's not the same. And I think that just shows like an incredible level of attention to detail with what you're doing. And I think that ultimately that's why people would appreciate it, right? Is that you really get down and dirty and you're like, hey, we're going to get our bread from here. We're going to do this. We're going to get all these things and bring them all in and source the ingredients that are what make that style of cooking unique to that area and bring them right here to the biggest city in the world, you know?
I think you have to do it. And for us, that's the one thing I think the hardest or the biggest problem that we had initially was conveying our message, conveying our story without it being like obvious right in your face. You know what I mean? Sometimes a company or a brand wants to just push that so hard. I think one thing that we tried to do was introduce that map. And that map was an idea by a gentleman named Douglas Riccardi. He runs this company called Memo Productions in New York City. They're like a restaurant branding firm. And I met him through some contacts and friends, and he actually told me, he was like, I think it'd be a really great idea to show that you're authentic without saying you're authentic. You know what I mean? And so by doing the map, I think it kind of takes what we always say is it takes the bullets out of their gun before they walk in the door, because they're looking for a reason to kind of tear the concept apart because they want to know that it's real. And so often people will fake it. How many times have you been on at a random restaurant in the middle of nowhere and they've got one thing that says shrimp po' boy and you're like, dude, it's just fried shrimp on bread. It's not the same. It's not the same. And the bread, by the way, is the thing. And that is our end all be all. If we can't get Leidenheimer bread, we are in trouble, because Leidenheimer bread is the best bread. It's the only bread, as far as I'm concerned, that we can really use to make po' boys. There's a couple of other places in New Orleans that make really, really great breads for different po' boy shops, but the majority of them use Leidenheimer. And for us to be able to ship it and get it, it's crucial to our business. And it's the thing that people judge us on when they find out. You know, they're like, oh, okay, I'll try this. So having those things up front and like conveying that to our customer base has been really, really helpful. And we didn't have that for a while.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's one of those things too. Like we've talked about, branding and authenticity and all those different kinds of stuff on this show with people that run restaurants like yourself, with other people that run podcasts, with the people that run businesses and all those different things. And just telling somebody, obviously, that like, hey, we're the real deal. Nope. Yeah. Especially like in New York City where everybody's BS meters are so like finely tuned. They know. Like they know that you're not authentic just because you're telling them. And like that's one of those things that I think is such a great point and a great way to show that like this is what you're trying to do. So talk to me more about like you don't necessarily have like traditional culinary training, or do you?
I do and I don't. So I did not go to culinary school for a proper French culinary or whatever.
Right.
I went to French Culinary Institute. Well, ICC is what it was called. Most people call it FCI from back in the day. But I went there for a business program, and I tried to just like audit and take as many classes and go to as many demos as possible. ICC recently, unfortunately, closed its doors after I don't even know how many years. They were down in Soho in New York, and I think culinary schools are having a real issue right now with getting people to go to culinary school because frankly you don't have to anymore.
Right.
Because of this wonderful thing that we're talking through right now. There's a lot of things that you can learn and do and not have to go to school for, and that's all fine and good. But anyway, they recently closed, but they used to run this program called culinary entrepreneurship. When I started the business, I realized I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I realized pretty quickly that it was like, I remember at the time, my friend James, who's just like a CPA and he's a friend of mine from growing up, he was doing our books for us. And he was like, good God, dude, you don't know what you're doing, but you're actually making money. This is a little business that we can help grow. Long story short, James is now our CFO. I'm one of the partners here. So James bought in. But anyway, I mean, basically, I went to this program to learn as much as possible about the business aspect of owning a restaurant, and kind of going from, like we talked about, like graduating from pop-up, festival guys to caterers to a real restaurant. I was pretty scared and I wasn't sure what to do. So I wanted to learn how to write a business plan, how to understand the basics of the finance. Not a finance guy. I hate that stuff. That's what James is for. So for us, I thought the best thing that we could do is for me to go to this program. So I went to this program at ICC, and while I was there, I mean, it was unbelievable the amount of world-class chefs that would do demos on a daily basis. Like, they have this huge auditorium, and Jacques Pepin would do a thing, or Daniel Boulud would come down and speak and show you how to sharpen a knife. Like all these things that you see, and I would just go to as many of them as possible. I talked to some of the people there, and they let me go to classes and sort of audit, if you will, and really sort of learn and take a look at that side of things. So yeah, I learned there a great deal about, I think the transition for me was to go from sort of a home cook to a professional chef. And that's still in the process of happening, because it's a day by day experience, and learning how to run a kitchen. But I'd worked in restaurants previously, and cooking is always a passion of mine. I did not think that I would necessarily be in this position in my life, when I was younger. I always said I want to own a restaurant. I love restaurants, but it took me a little bit of time, I think, to figure out what I really wanted to do and try some things out, and go. And finally just say, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And now that I've done it, I'm never going to do anything else. It's what I do.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And it seems like things are going well, especially when you didn't even know what you were doing, and things seem to be going well. So talk to me also about, just from I told you before we even started, like, we do real estate here. Was there a reason why you picked Brooklyn as opposed to maybe Manhattan or one of the other boroughs? Was there a reason why?
Yeah, I didn't have any money.
Okay, great.
No, I mean, for us, I mean, it seemed like Brooklyn, I mean, I guess I started the restaurant. We got the space in 2015. So I guess at that time, Brooklyn was still booming. And you've got your Williamsburg hipster mecca, and then you've got these other parts of Brooklyn that we were looking around. And one thing that I really wanted to focus on was where a lot of other concepts were going towards. And I noticed that they were going towards kind of downtown Brooklyn, Carroll Gardens, stuff like that. So for us, really focusing on what the trends were and what some restaurants that we wanted to emulate, where they were going. And it's as simple as that. And a lot of, especially in New York, the most successful restaurants I find are copycats, not necessarily copycats in terms of a concept, but just following where the other, successful restaurants are going. So for us, Manhattan was just insanely expensive, and we were looking at our budget. We're trying to think, okay, what can we actually do? So we put down, pen to paper, put together a business plan, and we realized, I mean, the more we looked at it, we liked Brooklyn. And also, my whole thing is, I want to be where I lived in Brooklyn at the time,
right?
And I lived very close to the restaurant. I lived a couple blocks from where we wound up going, and I want to be as close to there as possible. And I want to be a part of the community in the neighborhood as well. So I wanted it to be a spot where I could set up shop and, and live there, because you do live in a restaurant if you own it.
Yeah, right. And so talk to me also about how you expand, obviously, to Nashville. Was that the beginning of this year, or did you move to Nashville? Okay, so it was the beginning of this year. You moved to Nashville. You open up the Nashville location. Why was Nashville the next spot? Was there a particular reason why?
So I'd been coming down to Nashville to visit a really good friend of mine for some time now. And I've been back and forth. And there seemed to be this recurring theme of, like, by the way, anytime you meet anyone and you own a restaurant, they're like, dude, you got to open here. They want you to come to,
right, yeah.
Like everywhere you go.
Yeah. Morristown?
Like,
you want to come to Morristown?
Yeah, you should, dude, come to Morristown. You kill it. You crush
you crush, man. There is no gumbo here. I can promise you that.
And you're just like, oh my God, everybody says it, but for some reason, this one really resonated with me. And I think honestly, I just got a great feel for the city, and I really just liked coming down here and spending time with friends, and visiting Nashville. And then eventually, I was like, is there really an opportunity, and how do we want to handle the next steps for the company? Now, New York is managed well, and we have our people there. And for me, I was like, I don't know that I necessarily want to open another spot in New York, because I am from the South and eventually want to get back South. My parents are happier. I'm getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
So yeah, for us, I saw Southern expansion as something that we should look into. And Nashville just made the most sense to me because I felt the most comfortable here and I just like it. So yeah. I moved here about 7 months ago. I still go back to Brooklyn. But for the time being, obviously Nashville is the focus, given it's a new restaurant, and we just opened at the end of this crazy year that we've had lately, which we could do another podcast on that sometime. If you want to know a thing or two about how to open a restaurant during a pandemic.
That'd be very niche.
Don't do it. My advice, don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah.
If it's too late, I'm the guy to talk to.
Right. Yeah. So talk to me about that. So the next time you're back in Brooklyn, just tell me, because then I'll come then.
Let's go.
And then,
I love it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Go in a couple of weeks. I'll text you.
Shoot me a text. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So talk to me also about that, because obviously, COVID was a thing. And obviously New York, New Jersey area at the very beginning, like March, April, May, just got absolutely annihilated and everything was shut down. And obviously, both places took a long time to actually open back up, or, not even just to full capacity. Outdoor dining was a thing, all these different things. So talk to me about you're in the process of opening the Nashville restaurant. Cause I'm sure it wasn't like, hey, we moved to Nashville, boom, lights are on. Right. Yeah. So you're trying to do that. You're trying to probably keep this your first brick and mortar restaurant afloat, I would imagine. Talk to me about the types of hoops that you had to try to jump through to make sure that you knew that restaurant was getting out the other end of that year and a half or so.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is having proper help and management and people who are there to help you, frankly. And that we found that in Clay in New York, in James, as he's taken over the finances of the company. Rusty Jordan is our operations manager. Having the people that you're comfortable with to continue to take the next steps, because throughout the process we were like, do we want to keep doing this? Do we want to keep doing this? Does this make sense? Because it's kind of crazy. Opening a restaurant in another location, opening a restaurant is hard. Opening in another city is really hard. Opening in another time zone doesn't help. Yep. And then you just list off all these things, and then COVID hits, and because initially we were looking into Nashville before COVID, and we had a deal sort of set for the location that we're in right now. And I got to give a lot of credit to our landlords here in Nashville who stuck with us and said, look, we want y'all to be here. We want you to be successful. We want you in our neighborhood. That's something you don't hear a lot from landlords, especially New York. So, for us, it was just so many different people kind of helping and coming together to get us to continue the expansion plan of the company. But we were shut down in New York for almost 2 months when COVID hit. We went from, I want to say the Friday before we closed, having our busiest Friday in the history of the company, to being closed on Tuesday. I think it was that St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day weekend.
Or the day after. That weekend, we were slammed. Everybody's like, hey man, we're working from home for a week or two. It's kind of crazy, right? So, it's just been nuts in terms of, I don't know. I look back on it and I'm like, I can't believe we've actually done this in the amount of time that we've done it, and that things have continued to go in that direction. So, opening was stressful, but I think that I'm really fortunate to have a great team, and it's not just me, and you can't emphasize that enough. And that's not me trying to rah or bullshit anyone. But at the end of the day, if you don't have proper management, you don't have people that you can lean on, you can't do it yourself.
Right.
So that's for us. And for me, I guess as an owner, trying to delegate and learning to delegate and be a better manager and operator, not just an owner, a dictator as to we do this way. Yeah. For me, trying to get people in here and continuing to expand our management has been my biggest focus in the last year, because you can't do it all yourself. It's sort of, I guess, the long-winded answer, but I mean, man, it's definitely been a crazy year, and I just can't thank. There's so many people that you could thank. I can't believe it. I'm happy like every day now.
Yeah.
Like there was a time where I woke up and I was like, I think I lost everything. Like everything. Scary. Like really, really hard to, talk to my wife and try to be calm, but at the same time, firing your entire staff again a day or two after having such a busy time. We were coming off our busiest month because we came off, it was February, it was Mardi Gras. We had all this press and we were just blowing up and we were putting together record sales, and then it just stopped. And that's something that I've learned to not take for granted. So every day I get to come to work, I'm just super happy, because I really thought a little over a year ago that I'd lost everything, but people kept pushing us and saying you should do it. And we got really lucky in a lot of cases. And then other times I like to think that we were prepared and we did the right thing throughout the process. So that's how you expand, I guess.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I guess. Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. The short answer is you don't know. So perfect answer. No, but I think that's a great thing, because obviously, like here in my town, we have like a nice bustling downtown. We had restaurants close. We had a couple open also, which they probably should have talked to you as well. But a couple closed, and they were like really good restaurants. And, it's just like, it sucks because you're a living example of that. I mean, you put all this time, effort, money, all this stuff into this thing, and then something happens that is just so beyond your control that, like, now what do you do? Like you feel helpless, like twisting in the wind to a certain degree.
I've gotten better at just accepting the fact that I can't control what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like there's that, like, I mean, I used to have that dream, like before opening, and I'm all nervous. We're trying to get the staff together. Like there is that dream, that recurring, like, holy shit nightmare that you have, that it's like you open the door and nobody shows up.
Yeah.
And that's going to be there. And that's always going to be there. And I want to open more restaurants, and I want to expand, and I want to do other things, not just Gumbo Bros. Like that's always going to be there. But at the same time, I don't know. After last year, I guess my takeaway from everything is just enjoy yourself, and don't take days like, if you have a bad day of sales, like it's not a bad day. Like I've had bad days, you know what I mean? Like now right. It's like if we can get through that, we can get through anything. And it's sort of, I've lost a lot of the fear, I think, of opening a business and operating a business, because what are you going to do? What are you going to take it away from me? Like,
right.
What are you going to shut my doors, make me fire everybody? I've already done that.
Yeah.
It was awful. So, and knock on wood, I don't think that's ever going to happen again.
Yeah.
If it does, I don't know.
I don't have any
wood
around
I'm
me.
like, shit, what are you going to do?
Right. If it happens again.
And it's like, I've said it to everyone who's asked me about, the process during COVID. I'm like, how do you feel sorry for yourself when the entire world is having the same problem? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's as simple as, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Right. What are you going to do? Exactly. You just got to keep showing up, doing your thing, and controlling what you can control. That's all it is.
Just trying to take care of your people the best way you can. And we try to do our best throughout the process. And then we reopened. We opened with a bang. And our community in Brooklyn really kind of, huddled around us and really helped us limp through last year. And now we're open again, like full time, which is crazy. So it's been a wild ride.
Awesome.
We've learned a lot from it.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned also during that answer about like coming off Mardi Gras, obviously into that, you were getting a lot of press. So that was one of the things that I did want to ask about, because like talking about like thinking of the name, the Gumbo Bros, thinking of the branding, thinking of all these different things, and then being out front on like all these different publications that I mentioned before. Then obviously this incredibly successful podcast. I mean, you're huge. So you are out in front of it, like doing it, like doing more, maybe not more than other people do, but doing stuff like beyond just, tweaking the gumbo recipe to get it like just right finally, so talk to me about the importance of the branding side, and then being, in front of the camera essentially, and talking about that story and how you got yourself here.
I mean, it's massive because I mean, so much of our food is a story. And I think that all great restaurants are run that way. You know what I mean? And great brands for that matter, not necessarily just restaurants. But I mean, if you have a good product, that's fine. It's great. A lot of people can do a lot of things individually very well. But if there's no story to it, there's nothing. It's just another thing. There's a difference in, hey, that was a really good sandwich versus, wow, look what these guys did. You know what I mean? And the sandwich was good. So like, you just have to combine those things and have to continue to push. And like, for us, I mean, we're proud of what we do. So why wouldn't we share it with the world? We want people to come in, and we actually think we have a cool story to tell. I mean, I met James in the 6th grade. He invited me to have lunch with him on my first day at our new school, and now he's the CFO of the company.
Yeah.
Clay was my, college roommate, who we would just get in drunken shenanigans and fights together and stuff. Like we've taken so much of our past experience, and we really are like a family, and have grown a little business. And on top of that, aside from us, like, we love our staff. Our staff keeps us going, and our staff is family to us, and we do so much. We feel like that is behind the scenes for them and for our community, and for just trying to be a good company and not just try to make money on something. Because I've said it before, like, dude, if you want to make money, don't open a restaurant. This is not the way to financial freedom and jet setting, and anybody who acts like it is completely full of shit.
Yeah.
You do it because you love it, and you have to have passion for it. So, I mean, who doesn't want to talk and be open about their passion?
Right. Exactly. That's why I do this, because I'm passionate about this, and we talk about it all the time, because literally that's the whole point of a podcast, is you talk about it. But has it been, did you have a clear plan? Like when you start putting like the website together, when you start putting the Instagram pages together, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs on this show. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show, and a lot of different entrepreneurs in a lot of different walks of life or different industries and all that kind of stuff. Was there like a clear plan? Like, hey, this is how we're going to do this? Or was it more of just kind of a learning on the fly type thing?
I think I've always had like sort of these like pipe dreams about what we could do with the business. But I think if you had told me that we'd be where we are, right after starting the company, I'd tell you you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Because we did think initially that it was going to be like a part-time thing. Like, we had jobs. Like, this was a side hustle. I was a PA on I was like a production assistant, which is the worst job on the planet, in like film for movies and TV shows. And everybody thinks that's so cool, but really everybody just yells at you. It tells you to get coffee. You professionally just walk around shushing people on set. So, I mean, we did that. I walked dogs. I bartended. I did all kinds of stuff just trying to get it going, because I thought this was a part-time thing. So for us I think that's the thing I'm most proud of, is sort of all of us sticking with it and sort of continuing to push to get a little bit bigger, get a little bit more well-known, to expand and to give people good food. So it's been, I can't believe we're still doing it, to be honest, sometimes. Yeah. If I had known, I didn't know that I would be referred to as a Gumbo Bro the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right.
I've been places, someone's like, hey, you're the Gumbo guy. And I'm like, oh, God, my name's Adam. It's so bizarre, but you know what? People resonate with the brand, and they love the food. And some people hate the food. They'll tell you, I don't care. It just is what it is, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
I like my job, and every day is a good day as of late. So
yeah,
what are you gonna
no,
do?
That's good. Yeah. I mean, if you like what you do, then whatever, everybody else can go scratch. So, so talk to me also, you mentioned in an earlier answer about like the community aspect. You talked about how, like, when you were in Brooklyn, you were living in Brooklyn, the restaurant was in Brooklyn. Now you're living in Nashville, the new restaurant's in Nashville. Talk to me about the importance of community outreach and this type of stuff that you guys do because I think that is one of the things that I think that, maybe like local restaurants, which is what I feel like, you guys are, granted you have 2 locations, but the story and the authenticity of that restaurant makes it basically a local restaurant. So talk to me about the importance of being a part of the community and some of the things that you guys do to do that.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like one thing I was kind of blown away with was just how many people in Nashville reached out to us. And also, this is a tough time. Like, this is a really tough time for everyone. And everyone has just frankly been going through it lately with COVID and with restrictions. I mean, we opened and we were still at 50%.
Yeah.
So a lot of restaurants, owners, chef, practically every one of them in town reached out to us at some point and it was like, hey, welcome. We hope you guys kick ass. Hope everything's great. If there's anything I can ever do. And that was something that I didn't really experience in New York. Um, and that's not because I think New York is, full of people who don't care about you. It was something like
It's a different vibe. It's a
such
different
a
vibe.
different. It's a different world. Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a city. It's a different planet compared to a city like Nashville. So like getting in touch with all of those individuals and all those different companies has been so great. And then for us, like one thing that we really like to do is not just try to do things when we do any type of like philanthropic, uh, fundraiser or giveaway or whatever it may be, or we do tailgates for Saints games and stuff like that. Like one thing we like to do is try to give back to our home. So for us, New Orleans, we've done a lot of different charities back in New Orleans, around the Gulf Coast, around Louisiana and Alabama is something that we like to focus on. And then if something comes up local that we can help with, we'll definitely do that. I mean, it's for us so important to continue to get in touch with the community and be a part of it. So like we're starting a pint of the month here next month here where we're going to take like a different charity every month. And, for every pint of beer we sell, we donate $1.
Yeah.
Like it's just things like that to touch base and become part of a community, I think are really important to a business. And on top of that, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And I think that's a great answer. So I have a couple more questions, then we'll get into our closing segment and then we'll wrap it up. So, all right, so like if I walk away from this recording or somebody walks away from this episode and can't immediately get to either Brooklyn or Nashville, because we have people that listen in other parts of the country and they're like, what the hell? I'm going to go make a pot of gumbo and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to go find a recipe on, allrecipes.com. No, that's not a plug. They're not a sponsor of the show, but we just said it. What are some tips maybe? Not the full, you don't have to give me the recipe or any like insider secrets, but what are some tips? Like what are like the most common mistakes people make when they're trying to make a good gumbo?
I think there's all these rules and weird sort of like stigmas to making a gumbo that like some regions, like we talked about, are super like, I mean, very hardcore about. Personally, I like Cajun style gumbo. I do not like tomatoes in my gumbo. I think tomatoes in gumbo are weird. I don't like it. I don't put tomatoes in my gumbo. We did initially when we first opened, or one of our first pop-ups, and I eventually killed that. I was like, I don't like that. And other people liked it, but it was just like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. So I'm a no tomato guy. I think dark roux and okra is a must, absolute must. Some people, there are three main thickening agents in a good gumbo. You've got filet powder, you've got a roux, and you've got okra. What I always tell people is you don't want to mix too much of those. Most people say you do 2 out of 3 and not all 3. I've used 3 before. It's okay to break rules a little bit. And I think the most important thing in making a gumbo is doing whatever you want. If you really like tomatoes, put tomatoes in there.
Yeah.
But there's all these crazy rules because it's such a weird dish and that there is not one way to make it. There is no definitive way to make a good gumbo. It's just what you have available. And it's sort of, the genesis of the dish is like, what the hell do we have?
Yeah.
It's poor people food. You know what I mean? It's putting everything in a pot and making it work. So for us, I always like to tell people, like, make it the way that you want to make it with what you have available. And then you can always tweak it and you can always have more fun with it. But if it's made, I wouldn't put tomatoes on it. That's just me.
The one key takeaway.
That's my thing. No tomatoes.
Don't put tomatoes in it. Tomatoes are weird.
No way.
Yeah.
Not happening.
Oh my God, I love it. All right. So one of the things that we had talked about prior to getting on here, I asked if there's any stuff that you wanted to touch on. And we talked about a couple of things. We're going to get into that now. But that is one of the questions that I always ask, particularly entrepreneurs, about goals that they have, over the next year, 2 years, whatever it is. So what are some things that you're hoping to accomplish with Gumbo Bros in the foreseeable future?
I would like to get this restaurant in Nashville to be a little bit more, self-sufficient so that I can get more time in Brooklyn. I really do want to split time and get back and forth a little bit more. I really want for us to continue to hone in our staff and our management to get to that goal. So for me, I mean, I sort of take things week at a time, and it's really simple. It sounds like such a business TED talk bullshit to 1 week at a time. You know what I mean? But it's like
right, day by day.
I really do. I really try to take things day by day because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's sort of the great thing about owning a restaurant, if you're into that sort of thing, is the puzzle that is every single day.
Yeah.
It is, it can be really frustrating at times, the type of just absolute, insanity that you're dealing with. And because you've got so many different people, you've got so many personalities, you've got so many different positions, and every one of them is important. Trying to get everything lined up in the right space, and then it all just crashing. And then the next day, you got to just do it again.
Yeah.
So it's for me, I think my end goal is to try to get this place as finely tuned as possible in the next year before trying to figure out what is the next step, whether that be another restaurant, another concept. I don't know. I don't think we're going to be ready for any of that in the next year. So for me, focus on this, try to not take it for granted, try to really teach the staff what we do and how we do it. And, we'll see where things go down the line.
Right. What about brunch? You guys do brunch?
Oh, I'm doing brunch.
Oh, we're gonna do brunch.
We're going to do brunch soon. We're on the menu for some time now. And I think we're going to start the brunch here in the fall. Hopefully, late August, early September. We're going to have a pretty great brunch menu set up, maybe even a little jazz brunch to do a little New Orleans theme and have some fun with it. So I'm really excited about having a little brunch menu. We've got a very, very talented bar staff who's putting together some cocktails and working on some stuff right now. And I think it's going to come out really well, and it's going to be delicious.
Very cool. Very cool. And then you mentioned also, Saints games, LSU games. Talk to me about how important that is in your, process of your day-by-day process leading into football season coming up.
Totally. I mean, we want to be the place for Saints fans in both Nashville and New York. New York, we don't have that much room. I can tell you we always have a good time. It's always really nice and rowdy in the Gumbo Bros in Brooklyn for any type of Saints game. But down here, we're hoping to bring that same vibe. The Saints are a passion of mine, a very frustrating passion as of late, but it's okay.
Yeah,
I've got faith. I think we're going to have a great team this year. But what I love about Saints games and LSU games, for that matter, is so many people come in and get to know them, and it's like my time to sit on the other side of the bar and have a drink and get to know my customers. And I've gotten that connection with a lot of people in New York. I haven't been down here for football season yet, so I'm looking forward to having it here in Nashville. I mean, it's so cool when you're sitting in your restaurant and you see all these people going out that are super, just excited to be here, and also excited to be around people that are obviously have some connection to the region, whether they're from there or spent time there or went to school there or whatever. I mean, I've seen people walk into the restaurant and see somebody from their high school and be like, "Hey man, what's up?" And it's like, that's the connection. And that's the moments where you kind of, it sounds cheesy, but it's like, that's kind of why you do it, is the community and that feel and that vibe. So having that for football is just, it's so much fun. It's just great. It's a good way for us just to get to know our customers and let them know how appreciated they are.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And it goes back to, like you said, what we were saying before, with the community aspect of it, with the culture aspect of it, with the stories that you get out of that, because it's like, it's a two-way street, because you're making the food, somebody's eating the food, and everybody has this different kind of connection to that, which helps them all kind of come back home, which I just think is very cool.
I feel like Saints games in New York in particular really brought us closer to the community. Yeah. There's some very specific examples, without naming names, of folks that we got to know, and we got to see their children grow up over the years because they bring them in for Saints games. You know what I mean? That's when it takes you from hey, yeah, I eat at that place. I love that restaurant because
Yeah.
they get to know us and we get to know them. And if we didn't have those games, I mean, not just like the football or the
Yeah.
sporting, the camaraderie of that or whatever you want to call it. It's like you get to know people, and that's how you connect with customers. So we're hoping that we can definitely have that same vibe here, and I think it's going to be great to have some folks in.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, like if we have a customer like that and they're like talking about something to, whoever, like their buddy, and they're like, you
Mhm.
gotta go to Gumbo Bros. Like
Yeah,
I think people are more willing to go to something where they get a good feedback from like a friend like that than actually being like, here's our Instagram page. Hopefully you come, stuff like that. So I think that
yeah.
that is like a next level type. Once you ensconce yourself in that community, it's just like, it just starts rolling. Right.
It's the ultimate connection, and it's like when they get to know you, like we talked about, like again, any restaurant can sell good food, but to not just sell a good story, but to show the good story and
Yeah.
actually be a part of their lives and connect with people, that's what people want.
Right.
And I think that's how we've been as fortunate as we have been with this business, is that we've tried really hard to connect our customers.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think the whole thing is great. This episode so far has been great, but we are getting into the most important part, the most challenging question of this entire episode. We're getting into our clothing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So
Oof.
Mike Ham and Adam Lathan have been talking for, I don't know, 45 minutes, somewhere around there. I
Yep.
lost track of time because I always lose track of time. But what would be one thing that you would want the spotlighters to walk away from this episode with, so you are under the spotlight?
That I care, that I care about what I'm doing, and that this job and this company and our employees and our customers just mean a lot to me. That I care. Our company motto is "Give a damn," and that's what we ask out of our employees. Because if you don't have purpose, you're just kind of wasting time, in my opinion. So that's, I guess, it's cheesy though. Like it's so cheesy, but it's true. But yeah, I just care.
Yeah. You know what? It's one of those ones where like every time, so we've done this at the time
Mm,
of this recording, we have posted 90 episodes. I think yours is going to wind up being like 107 or something
mm.
like that. Every single time someone says this is really cheesy or this is really corny, those are usually some of the best ones. I mean, like, honestly, like we saw over the course of this episode how much you care, both about the
Yeah,
community, both about the food, both about, making sure that it has an authentic story, getting the ingredients from all over, different parts of the South and all these different things. It shows how much you care.
yeah,
And, I think that that's a key takeaway. So anybody that's running a business, whether it's a restaurant or otherwise, it has to care. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like there's really no way around it. So I really appreciate that. And it was not cheesy. So we'll make sure
Thank
that
you. Oh,
everybody
thank
knows
you. That
that.
makes me feel better. It makes me feel better.
Yeah.
It's the truth, man. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Of course. Yeah. Let's hit them with the links before I let you go. So where can people go to get more Gumbo Bros outside of the obvious brick and mortar locations?
Cool. So we are working on nationwide shipping. So hopefully that'll happen at some point in the next 6 months. But you can go to www.thegumbobros.com. Also, our Instagram handle, Twitter, I don't even think we use Twitter, is at the Gumbo Bros. We've got Facebook for both locations. We also have, I have my personal Instagram is at Adam Lathan. It's mostly pictures of my wife and dog and me making smart ass comments about things. So it's not nearly as like culinary focused as people would expect from a chef. But yeah, you can always follow there for a good time, hopefully. And yeah, and we are, always looking to get in touch with people. We have people email us all the time. Do you ever want help with a recipe? You want to make a comment and to tell me that tomatoes should be in gumbo, you can always email us info@thegumbobros.com. We really love connecting with people. So
Awesome.
that's how to do it.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah. I'll start sending emails like tomatoes for the win, stuff like that. But I will put my email address, themorningspotlight@gmail.com, and the website, themorningspotlight.com, in the show notes as well. Obviously, all of Adam's links that he just mentioned will be in there. So if you do want to check them out, whether it's just through social media or actually go and eat there, please do so. I will be going there in a couple weeks when Adam texts me that he's there, and we're going to go hang out and drink beer and eat gumbo. Because I don't think I've ever really had like a proper gumbo before.
I'm going to show you the way, man. Don't worry.
Okay. Cool. I love it. I love it. Thank you again, Adam. This has been great. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm glad we were able to get this done. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Seriously, Mike, awesome time. Really appreciate everything. And hopefully it was a good one.
Awesome. No, this is a great one. Not just a good one, a great one. And the Spotlighters, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.